Hey, good afternoon and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Table Enabled. Today we're doing Shulchan Aruch Yomi, Simon Kuf Sadi Beis 192. Start talking about Zimun, the mitzvah of Zimun. Most opinions hold it's Darabanan, and there are some opinions who hold that Zimun is Doraisa. The Gemara derives the Makor, the source that you're supposed to do a Zimun, right? When you have three men, 13 years old or above, eating together, you before benching, you do a zimun, right? Rubber tires never break. Whatever, so whatever. So you're supposed to do zimun. Um, Midrabanan or midoraisa. So the source is the Mishnah Berurah brings. It says, Gadol Hashem iti and Romash Yachtav, right? Gadol Hashem iti. One person is saying to two other people, Neromama, you two together. So 1 plus 2 equals 3. A different pasuk, Yishem Hashem Ekra Habu Godel, when we call it Hashem's name, meaning in benching, right? Before we do that, let's give greatness to Hashem by mentioning before benching, right? It's sort of like an intro to benching. That's what Zimun is. We'll talk more about the idea, the message behind Zimun when we start going through it. It's only two halachas today. Aleph, Hayum Masubin Shlosha. There's only three people eating together. Chayavim Bezimun. Normally, if they eat together, meaning they start together and they end together. So they're chayim and zimun. Shomer echad mehem mevarach shachalnu shalo. Right. One of them says, "Let's bench together." The one that gave us food from him to Hashem. V'hem onin v'omrim baruch shachalnu mishlov to achayinu. Now, if you're familiar with the common zimun, right? There's part before it, right? Rabosayin v'rech Yishem Hashem v'rach talam Yishem Hashem v'rach talam v'rashus. Right. Rabosayin v'rech shachalnu mishlov. Right. So already. That's really the whole zimun. The first part, is not really part of zimun. It's only, we'll see from Kabbalah, we'll talk about that in a second. It's really Kabbalah. The main part, according to the Gemara, is just one, and then the Mazamin, the person who's leading, he repeats that, so really, only the second half is really what Zimun is. And he goes and repeats what they said. Right, and then the Mazamin, right? Technically, the way it is in the Gemara is the person that not everyone benches by themselves. Really, the person who's Mazamin, besides the fact that he leads Zimun, he also recites Birkas Hamazon out loud, and everyone's Yotzei Shomea Ka'ona through him. Our minhag is not to do. We'll talk about that not today. We're going forward why everyone says it together, but it is commonly found. Sometimes one person wants to leave early, so they make a zimun, right? So he says the first bracha that everyone hears, and then they answer, and then they continue eating, and he finishes Birkas Hamazon by himself. Him arba. If there's four people, yachol on bracha shachal mishlo. You don't have to say nivarich. Nivarich is me included. Nivarich, let's bless to Hashem. Let's do Birkas Hamazon. Baruch shachal mishlo. You should bench the other three because you have at least three, right? It's better to say Navarech because, right, there's two sources for it. One source, right, that he's part of it, right? The other source is so that could be three people apart from you. But the first source, if you want to get both sources in, so really ideally you're supposed to say Navarech and not say Baruch. Ibn Masara, that's only if you have 3 to 9 people. What if you have 10 people? Because, like we learned previously, when you have 10 people, 10 men of bar mitzvah age, it's called Darash Kedusha. Darash Kedusha, right? Darash Kedusha, you mention Hashem's name. You shouldn't say Nevarech Leilokenu, Nevarech Elokenu. Eventually, you asara omeo elef oribo kachem avarchem. Even though the Gemara and the Mishnah seem to indicate that there's a special type of zimun for 100 and for a different one for 1,000 and for 10,000, our minhag is to say the same thing whether it's 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. Anyone who changes from the text we have, he wants to get cute. His own interpretation on the food you gave us. Not Baruch Shachal Mishalo, Lemi Shachal. you say to who? There are small changes. Hareza bor, you're considered to be an ignoramus, someone who, now it's printed in the text and the benchers. You really don't have an excuse. And when there's 10 people, so this is one change in the text that you're allowed to do, even though the benchers say differently. Since you're mentioning Hashem's name, Nevarach Elokeinu Shachalnu Mishalo, you can say Al Hamazon. I don't know why this is different. That when there's 10 people, you can say Al Hamazon. The Suleka Limiti Dekai Al Balabayas Amachilo. So he says, obviously, the reason that the previous things were you're not supposed to say the different nuschos that he mentioned was because it could be interpreted that you're thanking the host for giving you the food, not Hashem. But once you're mentioning Hashem explicitly, Elokeinu, so then you can say Al Hamazon Shachalnu Mishalo, because if you say Hamazon without mentioning Hashem, and then people would think, oh, you're thanking the Balabayas. So now you're not thanking that you mention Hashem, so everyone knows you're thanking Hashem. Beizim Tav Zamin Basar Va'onin V'lo Iskir Elokeinu Einem Yachol Nachzar. Aval Madayin Lo Anu Acharav Yachzar V'Zamin B'Shem. Now the person leading, there's 10 people. Supposed to Nevarach Elokeinu Shachal Mishal. A lot of people forget this because it's not common to bench with 10 people, 10 men. If the person remembered before the people answered, right? So Nevarach Elokeinu Shachal Mishalo, and then he remembers, so he can correct. Sorry, he says Nevarach Shachal Mishalo, right? He didn't say Elokeinu, and they remind him, say Elokeinu, right? They yell it out. So then you can go back and say it. However, if they already answered, right, without saying Elokeinu, right? They said Baruch Shachal Mishalo, and they said Baruch Shachal Mishalo to Elokeinu. You can't go back and start again because they already answered. Now, what about the last part when you repeat, right? So you said Baruch Shachal Mishalo, there's 10 people, and they answer Baruch Shachal Mishalo to Elokeinu, and then you have to repeat it. The Mazamin repeats it. He says Baruch Shachal Mishalo to Elokeinu. It's before he does the repetition, and then he realizes, wait a second, we're 10 people. Could he say Shem Hashem? It's a machlokas. Mizrua says, look at the Shari Tshuva. Shari Tshuva brings two opinions, yes or no. I would say it's Shem Hashem. You go, the Mekel, don't say Shem Hashem in vain, and you probably should not say Hashem's name at that point. What oftentimes happens, I think, is that, sometimes, but I would say like this, that if you said Rosh Hashanah, and then the people, everyone else, around you, they realized there were 10. So even though you said Baruch Shachal Mishal, you didn't say Hashem's name, Baruch, and they say Baruch Elokeinu Shachal Mishal, so they already introduced Elokeinu. So I think in that case, you would be able, when you repeat it, even though you can't go back because they already answered, but you could, when you repeat it, you could reiterate what they said, Elokeinu. So I think that would be the difference. It's my personal opinion. That's the conclusion of today's share. Stay tuned for Ian Talina, where we talk about Zohar, which is a source for Rabbi Simer, Velen Benchen, Rabbi Tires Never Break. If you want to find out why we say that, check out Ian to lean on coming up next.